Prasad sir,
I think we
can you
should
check your
start.
audio?
Hmm?
Yeah, can you check your audio, Prasad sir?
Yeah, it's fine. You can hear me?
Yes, sir.
Can we?
We
हाँ,
can.
Okay,
कैमरा
right.
थोड़ा, हाँ कैमरा थोड़ा नीचे कीजिए तो आपका पूरा चेहरा आ जाएगा.
Is this fine?
हाँ, हाँ,
ठीक है जयंत, ओके.
हाँ, अभी ठीक है.
Good.
Okay, we can start. Sharoji.
Okay, Saurabh, so we can, as per the permission granted to us, we can start now.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
So from Model Gaon, Saurabh, our CEO, has joined, and then I am there, and probably Dr. Hiralal will join Saurabh.
Sir, he's already there, sir. He's joined.
Okay. Since he's a busy man, so whenever he has time, he'll definitely be with us. So
He has joined, sir. He has joined.
he has joined. Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So good evening to all of you, all the participants. This is really a privilege and honor for me to welcome Dr. Chatterjee, Dr. Prasad, Dr. Chaudhary, and all the enlightened participants of this discussion this evening. We have a very important subject today to discuss, that is Model SDG villages. This subject has been discussed, and we have been continuously discussing this subject all around for last 7 decades and more. And still, this is a dream for us to have developed villages in this country, and that is why we are here. So this is really a privilege for all of us to listen to the most important eminent people who are working in this field. We are also doing our bit to contribute whatever we can towards the development of the villages, and we are running a project called Model Gaon project. This project we are running with the support of ICICI Foundation, and Dr. Hiralal is the spirit behind this project. That our CEO Saurav Lalji, when he makes a presentation on Model Gaon, which I'll request him to do it. So he'll be talking about our vision, mission, our strategies, our activities, how we are going about it, and what we are trying to and dreaming to achieve. So now, without taking more time, I'll request Saurabh Lalji to first make a presentation on Model Gaon, and then we'll listen to the enlightened, eminent people who are here this evening to really to really enlighten us on this subject further. So now over to Saurabh Lalji.
Thank you so much, sir. And once again, a very good evening to all our guests here and all those people who were able to find time to join this discussion and make it more insightful. My name is Saurabh Lal, and I'm proud to be associated with this project that goes by the name of Model Gaon, which essentially is a rural development project with a holistic point of view. So generally, when rural development is spoken about, we generally talk about projects and initiatives which work in certain pockets, and we thought that it was rather important to kind of bring the perspective back towards holistic development and kind of converging attention on multiple aspects of development at the rural level. To give everybody an idea, this project is based on the development initiatives implemented by Dr. Hiralal as the District Magistrate of Banda, who is currently a serving IAS officer with the National Health Mission. And it was when those models of development and those interventions started bearing results, which were empirically proven, is when Mr. Manish thought of compiling those interventions into a model of development and making it into a rural development project on the whole. The essentials of this project lies on the fact that whatever interventions and initiatives we decide to do, we try and keep it low cost or no cost, which kind of removes the first point of hindrance for any development work. Secondly, we try and create convergence. It could be of funds, it could be of resources, it could be of ideas, it could be of people. And thirdly, and most importantly, and this is where we integrate the fact that this project is aimed towards sustainable development, is the fact that we look at people participation in everything we do. So all the beneficiaries are treated as owners of these initiatives, and whatever is being done, whatever is being planned with them in mind. Like I said, we are looking at holistic development, and we aim to achieve this through three activities primarily. First activity is something, it's a digital tool that we've created, which we call the Village Manifesto. The second is building change makers as a community. And third is transforming agri practices to agri business practices. And I'll elaborate over these individually. But just to give a larger perspective in terms of why we are doing this, is because we intend to create a demand for development at the grassroots level. So today, when we speak to a villager doesn't really is not really very confident of what development really is and on what all parameters should development really happen. And when there is this kind of a lack of practical knowledge, creating a demand for development or generating a demand for development becomes really challenging. But that also becomes the greatest solution to a lot of these problems. So our entire approach is towards generating demand for development. Village Manifesto, like I mentioned, is a digital tool where we have listed 25 development parameters. So this is a piece of literature which explains a normal villager as to what rural development really is, and on what all parameters should development really happen. Now, these parameters start from the basics of cleanliness, education, health, employment, etc., and moves to a more character building, more personality building, more capacity building orientation approach as well, which includes things like identifying talent at the right time and giving them opportunity, making a connection with the non-resident villagers, and try and create a phenomena where reverse migration becomes possible, be it implementation of various schemes that are in place. So we have tried to be very holistic in our approach in terms of identifying these development parameters as well. This is what our village manifesto looks like. The one on the right is the latest version. So we keep evolving, we keep learning, and we keep evolving. We have created a very simple web page on our website where anybody can log in, upload his or her photograph, name, and mobile number, and download this personalized village manifesto, which really what it does in a very simple language is that it makes a normal villager understand what development is and on what all parameters should development happen. We have seen this tool grow in popularity because of the fact that it is something which is very constructive in content, and also the fact that because we are able to personalize it, people are able to relate to it more. They see themselves, they see their known ones on that paper, and it kind of starts adding to a lot of engagement value there. Now, once we have made people aware as to what development is and on what all parameters should development happen, for any project to be self-sustainable, it needs to be led by the community itself. We have observed a lot of projects where there is a constant flow of external intervention, but eventually the impact is not really too substantial. And one of the major reasons being that the community fails to take ownership, or the community really fails to understand the wealth and the value that this initiative would have translated for them. And therefore, we have created a training module for potential change makers. Again, these modules are available online in a very simple language, in a very convenient manner. And these modules are very, very practical oriented. So for example, how to write an application, how to communicate with an officer of your area, how to set up a small mobile repair shop, how to set up a small mechanic, motorbike mechanic shop, skill development, personality development, how to write an email, how to use social media effectively for networking and people engagement. So there are multiple things, very practical oriented things that we are building capacity on for people, and making sure that people, their capacities are increased, they're able to take more responsibility and ownership of things that are happening in their villages, and they're able to lead to that process of change. Now, while making people aware about what development is and identifying people who can lead that process of change, while these two things cater to the social development aspect of a village, we are also sensitive of the fact that until and unless there is financial development as well, holistic development cannot be achieved. And therefore, we thought there could be two ways of going about creating a village level economy, and that is what we are focusing on. Either we introduce a new industry into the villages, which obviously is going to be a very Herculean task, versus we pick up a profession which is already making some money for the villagers, which they are used to, which they have become experts in, and try and industrialize that. So, which is where transforming agri practices to agri business practices is what we are focusing on. We all know that Uttar Pradesh is home to the largest number of marginal farmers, where the land holdings are very small. And it is to these farmers, these audiences that I speak to and make them understand the idea of collective farming, creating farmer collectives through FPOs, or if there is a produce of, if there is an agriculture produce which needs marketability. So therefore, through SHGs, how can we come together? How can people come together of that village and create a business entity which kind of starts generating more revenue for the village on the whole? We have been just 14 months into this project, and we are already working in 6 Gram Panchayats across Uttar Pradesh, where we are at different stages of implementation of this model. And it is very heartening to see that be it the Gram Pradhans, be it the PRI institution there, or the people themselves, they have been very encouraging and forthcoming in terms of accepting whatever information and knowledge and procedures we have been able to give out to them. So idea being that making them understand that there is benefit in economies of scale, and how do we bring people together towards it. We have identified certain key stakeholders through which we are trying to bring about change in villages, be it farmers or the pradhans or women. We are also very mainly focusing on the VLEs, the village level entrepreneurs through the common service centers, because these are people who are like gateways of technology into the villages. We have youth whom we are targeting in terms of skill development, personality development, and teachers who are going to be very instrumental in terms of building character for the youth that we are trying to engage with. We have kept association with model of fairly simple. Anybody can simply log onto our website, register themselves, and know more about the project. We are available on different platforms, be it in terms of WhatsApp, email, social media, where a lot of people are interacting with us. Within this short span, we have been thankful for being recognized on different platforms. The biggest being an acknowledgement by Mr. Rajiv Kumar, Vice Chairman of Niti Aayog, for supporting our model of rural development with a holistic approach towards it. So it has been a journey of encouragement. We feel encouraged by whatever we see here. Media has been kind in spreading our word of rural development and making sure that many people come to know about our project. While we are talking about rural development, we are also trying to ensure that rural development should not translate into urbanization of villages. So we are very well intended in retaining the ethos, the core character of villages. It is just that development should be at par with the nearby urban spaces that are there. Along with the conventional modes of development being introduced into the villages, we are also looking at novel ideas, newer ideas, where with rural tourism, with agri-tourism, we are trying to introduce new concepts. We're trying to make people understand that things like these can also exist and generate a lot of revenue for them, which in turn will really help them in upping their entire standard of life. As a belief system, we are strongly of the opinion that it is not position, money, or power which really brings about change. It is an individual's willpower. It is our intent, our collective effort that can really bring about change, and which is something that we have also seen in the practical demonstration of what Dr. Hiralal was able to achieve during his stint there. And like I said, that our entire model is very people driven. We believe to the core that no project can be sustainable till the time people participate in it, people come together, and people take ownership. So while there are many sustainable development goals which are incorporated into our manifesto, which we are working on, but even at an ideal level, the fact that this entire project, so we do not spend any money in building any physical intervention there. All the money is being operationalized, is being converged through the existing Panchayati Raj system that is there. We train the Gram Pradhans, we educate them in terms of how they can benefit more from the already available schemes, how can they converge resources and plan their work in a manner where they are able to concentrate on one particular problem and solve it in its entirety versus doing small bits for multiple problems and yet those problems remaining there. So it is a very people participatory approach that we have kind of adopted. We are very lucky to be guided by 4 Padma Shris from agriculture who are continuously guiding us in all our efforts. Dr. Hiralal obviously is the honorary mentor, and it is on his work that this entire project has been based. Mr. Munish is leading us from the front, and with his vast experience of rural development, it kind of puts us onto a good footing in terms of constantly evaluating what we are doing and what we are trying to achieve. Like you said earlier, we are being associated with quite a few institutes of repute, with ICICI Foundation supporting us through their CSR venture. We have a collaboration with the Chandrasekhar Azad University of Agriculture and Technology, Kanpur, where in association with them we are working on certain villages. So a lot of these organizations and associations are coming together, and we are trying to collaborate with them and try and work and at multiple places. Like I mentioned, we are available on multiple platforms, and we are operational on the ground in 6 Gram Panchayats as we speak, at various stages of intervention. And I'm really happy that we were able to put together this discussion with such esteemed guests, because with your knowledge and your understanding and your experience, it will be a great learning for us also, me and the team, who would be able to learn from you all and implement and improvise whatever work we are doing on the ground. So thank you so much for your patient hearing, and I am really looking forward to listening to all our guests. Before we move forward, I would request Dr. Hiralal also to say a few words, and then we move on to our guests and we hear from them, please. Dr. Hiralal, sir. डॉक्टर हीरा सर, आप सुन पा रहे हैं?
1 मिनट सर, ज्वाइन कर।
I think he's facing some audio issues.
Okay. So I will welcome all the esteemed guests, and we are lucky enough to have such renowned personalities in this webinar. And I am not in a mood to speak. Just I would like to say sustainability. So our Model Gaon project is based on the concept of sustainable development goals. How? Because our actions and activity is not top-down, based on top-down approach, but instead it is bottom-up approach. All the actions and activities are based on our experiment done in Bada on ground, one thing. Second thing, we are implementing on 2 powers. We are adding 2 powers. Power of the people, how to mobilize them, how to inspire them, to involve them so that they should take the ownership. So people's power is one power, and the power of technology added to this people's power. By these 2 powers together, we want to run our this project, which is not made in AC rooms. This project is made on the ground of Bada. Bada is a district of Bundelkhand, which goes up to 50 degrees Celsius during the summers. So that is bottom up approach. Why I am saying this emphatically? To see, to emphasize the practicability of our project. So this is the crux. That's why we are saying, since it is being run with the 2 power together, people's power added with the power of technology, that's why it will sustain. That's so this is the crux, how we are related to SDG, Sustainable Development Goal. So this much I would like to say, not more than this, because I am in a listening mode today, because I would like to listen the eminent guests so that I can learn from you, I can imbibe from you to spread your idea through Model Gaon in the state and country. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would now like to request Dr. Shiladitya Chatterjee, India President, GF SRD, to please, sir, address us all. Sir, sorry, you are on mute, sir. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Okay. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Saurav. Thank you very much. I think, and thanks to Hiralal also for being present here, and he is doing a lot of good work. I must congratulate him, all of you. It's really part of this grand vision of Mahatma Gandhi that development starts from the village, and that is where the focus must be. And this is a very, very excellent work that you're doing. I'm glad it's been recognized by Niti Aayog and so on, and all power to you. Now, what I would like to say is basically very few, because you have already talked about most of the important things. I made a small presentation, so let me share that. Okay.
ये चटर्जी सर को वो दे दो, शेयर करना चाहते हैं people, शेयर ऑप्शन दो.
Can you hear me? Can you see me? Can you see this?
Yes, sir.
One minute, sir. 1 minute, sir.
Yeah. Can this be seen?
You can share, sir.
Can you see this?
We can see the screen now, sir.
Huh?
We can see the screen now, sir.
Okay, very good. Now, all right. So the topic is establishing model SDG villages using lessons from the Assam experience. We've been doing, ever since 2016, Assam has, in a sense, led states in India on the SDGs. And of course, initially it was basically at the state level, and then we started localizing. So we went from state to district, and we also tried to include villages and model villages also. So I'll just speak about what are the main requirements we felt for establishing model SDG villages. And I find that from Saurav Lal's presentation, most of the things that I will talk about have already been checked, but there are a couple of things which I would like to emphasize. Okay. So first, there are 6 things which I think are critical for establishing model SDG villages. Okay. Now, the important thing here I would like to emphasize is that we're not talking of development of villages as such, but we're talking of development along the lines of SDG, which Hiralal emphasized. So model SDG villages. So first thing would be to raise awareness on the SDGs itself. Okay. Second, establish supportive institutions. Third, align local priorities. Fourth, prepare village SDG plan. Fifth, build local capacities and promote ownership. And sixth, conduct monitoring and evaluation. So many of these things I'm sure you're already doing, but let me talk about this a little bit in detail. So maybe some of the things which I'm talking about may be in a sense emphasizing new things. Okay, so first of all, it is necessary to make all stakeholders aware of what the SDGs are. Now, when you are talking of development and you're talking of development along the line of the SDGs, first is the SDGs are focusing on the most critical elements of development. Okay, so that is important. And I saw from the list of things that you are emphasizing, many of them and most of them I'm sure are already taken into account. But there is one element which is critical on the SDGs, and that is target setting. When you have a number of areas and you merely emphasize those areas without setting targets to be achieved within a time frame, then you're not really focusing development properly, I feel. There must be a target towards which you're trying to move. And that is, in a sense, very, very important element of the SDGs. The SDGs have to be achieved by 2030. Okay. And they have targets for each of them. So within that framework itself, there is a kind of a development plan established, which needs to be, as they say, work backwards. So you assume that these targets and the village, for example, are to be achieved. And then you look at what currently the situation is, and then you see how do we achieve go from this place A, which is the baseline, to that target B within this time frame of what remains now within 8 years or whatever. So that it brings in a lot of urgency to this development process, and it focuses your mind towards what is essential, what is required to be achieved within that time frame. Okay, so this kind of awareness that we must do this, so within this time frame, that kind of brings in a challenge and an aspiration to everybody, and focuses all development kind of resources and attention towards these specific development areas. Okay, now, so raising awareness. So before we begin, we have to raise awareness, make everyone aware of what the SDGs are and why they're important and what we want to achieve within this time frame. So, and to do that, as Saurabh mentioned, we have to interact with a lot of stakeholders. It's very important to establish that linkage with all stakeholders, villagers, the local officials, and so on and so forth, the other stakeholders. Without that, there will be no possibility of doing anything, and there is no ownership. Okay. The second thing that is very important is establish supporting institutions. Now, who is going to run this, in each village? There has to be some kind of a village driving force. So we have to establish a village committee kind of thing. Maybe that's one way of doing it, with the village pradhan maybe at the center, and then NGOs, CSOs, Gaon Panchayat representatives, women's representatives, representative from the BDO office, youth, the representative from the TSLRs, state departments must be represented in some way, and also if possible private sector. So we get everybody together and form a core team, and that is the group that will drive the whole process. Okay, so it's important to establish this kind of institution. Otherwise, one doesn't really know who is actually doing what. Okay, next is to get the village to agree to a set of priorities. Okay, Now, when we say SDGs are global goals, and they have been adopted at the national level and at the state level. But not everything that pertains to the SDGs will be important at the particular village level. Some will be more important than the others. So the village has to discuss this amongst themselves and establish what are the important areas that need to be focused on. Okay, so this identification of goals is very critical. And for example, this was done in Assam, carried out a very, very thorough kind of a needs assessment, village-wise, where the villagers themselves identified in each area what their needs were. And then what we try to do is we try to link these village level needs identified by the villagers to the SDGs. And so some of these became sort of identified with their own ownership of their goals, and we take those up. Okay. Now, once you identify what are the village priorities, then we need to do a village level survey to establish baselines. What is the current situation as far as each of these things are concerned? That is absolutely essential. I'm sure you may have done this already. Next step, of course, is then to prepare a village level SDG plan. Now, once you have, as we said, the SDGs, the SDG philosophy is to establish targets to be achieved within a particular time frame. And if you have the baselines and you have the targets, then you know the amount of effort that is required. And then you have to think about how do we go about attaining those targets. So that's the SDG plan, the village level plan. Now, the plan must attempt to achieve the SDGs. It must take stock of resources at the command of the village and what can be obtained through support from the Gaon Panchayat and the state government schemes and programs. So you mentioned this, that we make use of all the schemes that are available and see to what extent they can be augmented, perhaps, through lobbying with the government and so on, to say that, okay, this scheme is going to lead us from A to B, but we need to go even higher, okay, to achieve the SDGs. And then you say, okay, then you lobby the government departments and see that that is achieved. Now, sometimes, despite your best efforts, those gaps will not be filled. Okay, I mean, gaps will remain. So you have to fill it with the help of, discussions with NGOs, maybe. Try to get the community to put in a lot of more effort, or even, get help from the private sector, where that support is possible. And as I think Hiralal mentioned, technology is absolutely important, very important. And we find that with technology, we can do many things which are, less costly through means such as, I am doing a kind of a model village approach in my own village at the moment, through my own NGO, in which Jayanta is also, is actually a secretary in that NGO. And we are trying to bring in health through telemedicine. So we've set up a telemedicine center. Now this center is running for the last 1 year, and it is pretty successful, and we've treated quite a large number of people. Now that's because of the fact that we will not get very good doctors to be able to come to the village. Our village is very remote. And so why not use technology? Similarly, technology can be used, for example, for virtual teaching. Okay, we are thinking of, taking up virtual education also, modalities. So we have to use innovations and use latest technology to basically deliver these basic services. And the plan has to be developed with the participation of everybody. Okay, the next thing is build capacities and promote ownership. There will be a lot of gaps in terms of human resources, and training will have to be a continuous activity of the local functionaries. And of course, you have to see that at every step, the whole process involves local stakeholders. And this has to be a process, and you have to encourage. You have to have continuous dialogue with stakeholders and see what their feedback is. and of course, ensure that there is local leadership of this whole process. Finally, this is very, very critical. You have to conduct monitoring and evaluation. Once you've established the SDG sort of plan, then you have to monitor it, see what is the progress. So maybe take quick surveys to see where you are, and if there are certain areas which are falling behind, then you have to take corrective actions. So this is a very, very important step. Without this, the plan will just not work. Okay. So these are my very, very few points that I wanted to make, and I am very happy to see that many of them are already taken care of. Now, if you would like to refer to what some of the work that we have done, Assam SDG District Manual talks about many of these things. I've drawn some of these things from here, so it's available. There's a website, and it will be, if you're interested, this presentation will be there. You can have a look at it. So also, I have my email address there in case there is any further question, which I cannot answer now. You can address me and we can discuss this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. It was very insightful to kind of go through your talk right now. And my key takeaway, and you very rightly mentioned that target-based interventions is something that we should really not lose sight on. And because generally any development initiative has a sense of continuity to it, but without any target setting, it may just go into wilderness. So I think you have very rightly pointed out a very valid point. And while we are doing a lot of these things, it just kinds of refreshes our perspective and gives us a lot of insights in terms of where we can tighten up things. So thank you so much for sharing, sir. I am definitely going to have access to this deck and the detailed document on the website and read through it and pick up things which we can implement in the villages where we are operating in. I really appreciate the idea, the intervention of telemedicine. It is something that we are also introducing in our villages, where with our health infrastructure, it could really be a game changer for rural health improvement. So really great to hear that, sir. I think we all, me and the team, we take a lot of valuable insights from this. So thank you so much for sharing, sir. Right. Moving on, I would now like to request Professor R.R. Prasad, Vice President of GFSRD, to kindly address us. And we'll take all the questions towards the end of our speakers' talks. किसी के कोई भी सवाल होंगे तो हम सबकी बात सुनने के बाद फिर हम एक डेडिकेटेड क्वेश्चन आंसर राउंड करेंगे. तो आपके अगर सवाल हो तो आप या तो चैट में लिख के छोड़ दें या अपने पास नोट करके रखें. एक बार सारे स्पीकर्स बात कर लेंगे तो हम फिर आपके सवालों के जवाब पे हम वो क्वेश्चन आंसर करेंगे. प्रोफेसर R.R. Prasad, sir.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah. Namaskar to each one of you, particularly Mr. Saurabh Lalji, Hira Lalji, and Manish ji, and Jayanta for giving me this opportunity. In fact, this is a subject very dear to me because I've been working on this subject for the last over 6-7 years. While I was in NID, involved in research and training on this subject, and even after post-retirement, I have been keeping a track on this subject and writing as well. What bothers me most about the model village is that the name itself. There is no one model now being followed in the country in the name of the model village. What disturbs me that every 2 months I come across a new name representing the concept of model village. The latest in this trend is the vibrant village, which has been announced in the new budget by the finance minister, which will be established across the border districts in the country in the name of the vibrant villages that will be mainly done with a view to cater to the needs of the migrant villages because of their difficulties in the village. They migrate to other villages, other living there, border villages uninhabited, and exposing them to threats. So now there is a proposal to develop those villages which are in the border areas into vibrant villages. That's another one. Then after that, I came across the concept of the IRDA, Insurance Regulatory Development Authority, which have made a proposal to develop 500 fully insured villages. Why I am mentioning about all this, that when you are doing this in your own area, you should also take into consideration the plus point, the external things which are being attempted elsewhere also, which can be incorporated in your model and other models also, that becomes more comprehensive. So the model village in terms of the fully insured village, which will be attempted first of all in 500 villages across the country, that will ensure that everybody, each household is fully insured. Now, the sector areas from which they will be insured is being worked out, but mostly from the climate and weather, rain, all that will be taken care, that they will be taken care. Then you also might have heard that the Post and Telegraph Department has launched sometime in 2020 a scheme called 5-star villages, which says that any such village which is implementing 5 schemes of savings schemes of the P&D department will be labeled as a 5-star villages. Then we have, we already know we have the Sansad Adarsh Gram Yojana. Then we have the Pradhan Mantri Adarsh Gram Yojana. Then we have the concept of eco village also, wherein the villages are developed as for eco-tourism. And in India, there are 6 very successful eco villages across the country. I have the list of all those villages, and I can share with you that how they are showing a real sustainable model based on the local resources available, how those villages are being developed as eco villages and is promoting eco-tourism. That is another interesting model. One of the very important successful models now known across the country is the Lakhpati Kisan Gram, which has been implemented successfully in Koti district of Jharkhand. I come from Jharkhand. I had developed interest in the subject, and the NGO which has been implementing this is the NBJK, Navbharat Jagriti Kendra, in collaboration with the Tata Trust, wherein they have adopted some 5,000 villages, and their plan was to convert those households into Lakhpati within 2 years. And they have already done for more than 60-70% households, they have become Lakhpati, and they have developed a unique model in which they make each village as one product village. Like they have a potato village, watermelon village, and all that. And based on the one product, one village model, by converging with the state government schemes, they have implemented this scheme very successfully. So I would like that this model be also looked into, which is being implemented in collaboration with Tata Trust. Then above all, the most important development is many times we call those model village a smart village as well. And a smart village within the framework of a smart village, now we have new term which emerged from Andhra Pradesh model that they call our village. We have developed a village called Mori, which is fully digital village. All financial transactions are done digitally, and they call their village a super smart village. And when we looked into the categories of the smart village, I was very much threatened. Then really, are we going to achieve so much? For example, we have super village in the name of nutrient smart village, water smart village, crop smart village, ICT smart village, energy smart village, future smart village, weather smart village, carbon smart village, and knowledge smart village. They are the array of the attempts being made across the country, and they're all valid, valuable. We need to learn from the intervention, experiments from all these players, because they're all doing unique experiments in their own ways. For example, in Jharkhand, I have got about 10 successful cases where interesting interventions have been made in Jharkhand villages. There have been an attempt to develop the women masons. All over country we have the Raj Mistri as the men, but in that state they made a first attempt to develop women as masons, and they called them as Rani Mistri. And their contribution in the construction of toilets in the villages became very important. They were very much successful in constructing village toilets in the country, in the state. And first time we had heard in the country a new concept called Rani Mistri instead of Raj Mistri. Likewise, there are many other interesting cases which I can share with you over email. But right now, my another important area to discuss with you is the funding pattern in these villages. There also is the variation. While most of the model villages work on the model of the convergence model, that the existing scheme will be converged. But based on my two evaluations on PMAGY in more than 5-6 states, where I found that at the grassroots level, convergence does not take place because at the grassroots level, there is no such directions coming from the top, which says that you have to converge these schemes in those villages like that. They say, no, what about other villages? Why should we give preference to those villages? We have no such orders. So the convergence issue at the grassroots level, village level, without proper guidelines, official orders, coordination, meetings, the convergence is difficult to take place. Then there are models under the Pradhan Mantri Adarsh Gram Yojana, where each village is given a sum of 20 lakh plus 1 lakh for administrative expenses. And this can be matched by the state government. They can give the matching grant also. And many states government have given matching grants in the name of the PMAGY, Pradhan Mantri Adarsh Gram Yojana. And these PMAGY villages are implemented in such villages where the population of the scheduled caste is 50% and more. So here you can say that this attempt is being made to develop the villages where the Dalits are living predominantly, more than 50%, and where the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment is giving money as well to the extent of 20 lakh per village, plus 1 lakh for administrative expenses. And then the state government is giving matching grant also. That also exists in practice. I have a report with me also. So there can be some grant from the government also to help this come faster. Otherwise, in the regular convergence model, the speed with which the desired schemes the felt needs can be implemented has to be looked into. Then another important thing is about the indicators. We have now problem of indicators related to these programs, and I am again amazed to note that, for example, the Antodaya program, which also deals with that similar thing, which has got which is monitored in the 3 domains with 21 indicators. Then aspirational districts program, which does cover villages as well, which has 5 domains and 49 indicators. Then in the PMAGY, Pradhan Mantri Adarsh Gram Yojana, there are 10 domains and 50 indicators. And the Sansad Adarsh Gram Yojana, there are 10 indicators, 10 domains and 35 indicators. Now we have to appreciate that what are the domains, which are the common domains for all these model villages, village level development programs, and what are the common indicators which are not overlapping and which are being followed very strictly and being also monitored not only for monitoring of implementation, but it also has to be monitored for outcomes. As we all know that of the late in the development, the outcome monitoring has become very important, especially with regard to the aspirational district program, where each planned program, aspiration program is monitored on desktop basis, real-time basis. So one has to also be very clear that our program for developing a model village is a time-bound program or the endless program. Because real model, it takes time to emerge. But in between the period, which are the first 2-3 things which we can do in 1 year, 2 years, next 3 years, like that. So that has to be categorized, because there is no one thing which can be given as a whole thing for the model, because each village has to have the USP, and that is the very concept of model village. There is nothing like model. Anything which can be replicated, anything which helps the villagers to develop sustainability, to become independent, Atmanirbhar, and all things. But it has to be unique in style, and it can be replicable, scalable, and that becomes the model of the village. So there can be thousands models in 1,000 villages, but each village model has to be very specific, and it has to be achieved in a time perspective. It cannot be endless, and it has to be staggered in terms of years, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, what we have achieved, and accordingly we have to keep moving. And there is another thing I have found in during my evaluation, that while the government says that if we have achieved these indicators as we have set out in our program, and then these villages will be declared as model village, in fact certification. I found that some states, instead of waiting for the approval, they themselves declared that we have developed 100 model villages without having been certified by any other body. So when we are claiming, or when we are striving to develop model villages, we also need to establish the credibility, that who is going to finally certify or declare or really say that yes, what we have done is really a model. I'm not saying that we are one, but there must be some agency, by the state government, central government, or through CSO, which can really certify that this village or the number of villages in the state or area has been developed and they are worth replicating elsewhere. So these were my quick comments, and I'm open to suggestion, criticism also, but I will be very happy to share my literature with you across the time as we go along. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And we really appreciate the perspective that you have put across, because you have very rightly identified that while a lot of institutions, departments, and organizations claim to be working with the common goal of transforming villages into ideal villages, model villages, vibrant villages, and like you rightly mentioned, everybody is using different terminology. But at the very essence, there is lack of convergence even at this level. And if that could be brought about, the transformation could be really much more rapid, much more comprehensive, and much more impactful. So I completely take your point, sir, that this is something that all the bodies, institutions, organizations who are working towards rural development should be cognizant of. And it is a thought process where probably collaboration between institutions themselves could result in meaningful convergence and much faster impact than what is essentially seen. And also on the fact that, why is development becoming an endless process and not a time-bound, milestone-driven approach is something that is really enlightening. It throws a good amount of light on that side as well. I'm sure these conversations so far are provoking many questions in people's mind, and we will definitely take them one by one. And we just have another speaker with us, Dr. Jayan Chaudhary, Associate Professor, NIR, DPR, NERC, whom I would now request to please put forth your thoughts in front of all of us, sir. And then we'll proceed with taking people's questions and having a discussion amongst ourselves as well.
Okay, are you getting me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay,
Please go on.
Thank you very much. Now, after so much of discussion about fast presentation on Adarsh Gaon, on the model village, then Dr. Chatterjee and Professor Prasad, Now, there are so many things to be picked up from those discussion, and so many things already we can share on that. Even when I was working in Tripura, Agartala, I mean, almost every department having some model concept, either fishery department, model fishery village, animal husbandries, then also the private parties like one jewelry shop, they have the corporate social responsibility. So they made a Sarno village. Okay, I mean golden village. So it is the part of that corporate social responsibility. So model village, I mean everybody become model. I mean how it is model, nobody knows, but everybody want to make something model. Yeah, I am the model. What does it mean by model? When I was going through some literature, definitely, I come across that the term model, it started from England in 19, what even, yes, 1929, when they were thinking for model village to keep the in the nearby some area of the factory, to make some facilities for the workers, and so that workers will get the all the amenities. Even one of my favorite Dr. Helen Sekhar was asking about how these model villages could contribute to the labor development. And so initially that concept came for that, so the betterment of the labor force, how they will stay in the village, so all the things they will get, okay, as the amenities and other things they will get. That's why the model it was initiated, and till they are keeping those things intact on that village, crypt on the village. And then now it has come to in different sector. Let me, before we go for the other issues, it's a small story. Even I'll definitely, because most of the my career in the 19 years I was in Tripura, one village was declared as a model village even last 10 years back, and the village was taken as adopted by the governor, the then governor Dinesh Chandra Sahai in Tripura. So that it is a almost a semi, I mean mixed group. Some there are 70, 80 families of tribal people, and there are the non-tribal also in the village. As a result, when it was declared as a model village, mostly the tribal people and particularly the wife of that governor, uh, she used to take care of that in the social service and other. And those villages, all the 70 tribal families, they got lot of amenities, starting from the TVs, the solar energy, everything is started. And over the passage of time, that governor changes and new governor came, and that families last 2 3 years almost they are enjoying like I used to. Even I wrote in the article, they are the guest of the governor. So they forgotten what to do. I mean everything they are getting the supply from the I mean directly from the governor's house, and the missus used to come, and they are getting, and they forgotten whatever their skills and activities for their livelihood and other. And the other non-tribal people who are there in the village, they are also in the initial stage, they are feeling very jealous kinds of thing. But when the past, I mean, over after 2 3 years, when the everything that so-called model villages totally stopped, nothing is coming from the governor house and other, they tried to sold out all the amenities that they got from the governor house and for the model village. And slowly the other village was taken as a model village. So my question is that the name of the model village we are talking about that, and here today the panel discussion we are making the model SDG village. Even the SDG village 2030 we are taking as a, I mean Dr. Chatterjee is very much passionate. He was a advisor of Center for Sustainable Development Goal in government of Assam, and also he was the chairman Asian Development Bank, particularly the chairman of Millennium Development Goal, when the SDG concept came. And but the question arises that biggest the question is the sustainability. The story as I shared, the when we are talking about the model village, the sustainability of model village is very important. How we are thinking, whether how many years, whether this Saurabh, Mr. Saurabh or his team in the leadership of Dr. Hiralal sir and other, all together the team they are making other thing. But how long you will continue the journey? How long you will be there? The hand holding support and other. So our Professor Rajiv Ranjan Prasad pointed out the very pertinent question, the time bound, whether we are thinking the time bound and whether we will continue. Number of even the that model sanitary village. I have conducted a study there. I have found there's a 2-3 years that there's huge change in the village. All the activities related to the promotion, the community mobilization on sanitation and everything, and all the village has 100% sanitation. I found it. But after 2-3 years of the project gone and the total sanitation campaign, that time the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan was not there. It was a total sanitation campaign. After 2-3 years, again all the infrastructure because they made some bamboo fencing kinds of thing, and it was declared as a 100% sanitation open defecation free village. But after 2-3 years, again the situation becomes the same. That's why I am asking that question is the sustainability, how long we can think on that. And also the pertinent question is that whether we'll go for the single activity or the holistic. Several even some Christian mission organization, I have seen that that time they were developing a model, holistic tribal village. So holistic in the different, starting from agriculture, starting from education and all together. But when we are talking about the holistic approach, then it is required the how best we can make the convergence. Here there comes to the ownership. So many people, so many organizations, if now are thinking from your organization or our organization, we are making some model village, we feel this is our ownership. But whose ownership will go? Until and unless it become the villager's ownership, the model village will not sustain. So our first question, even Dr. Shiladitya Chatterjee, in the very beginning, you pointed out one thing, maybe I am not talking directly on the sustainable development goal, but in any village, the first thing is the awareness. Awareness is not only for the SDG goals, but the awareness on their capability. I am little bit biased on the Rabindranath Tagore concept of rural development, when he made that thing, that discussed that the willpower should come from inside. It's a Sri. So the thing is, it is not imposed. The development should not be imposed from outside. Rather, development should be spontaneous from that. Whether they are ready to take or not, this is important. So that's why it's a very, very important that they should own their village, own their own village. Until and unless they own the ownership of the village, that yes, our village we have to develop, it is very difficult for the other organization. It may be for the few years, but ultimately it will not come out as a model village. There is the problem. So sustainability of the model village, this is one of the issue. And another two things that was came to my mind, one is the replicability. In our Global Forum for Sustainable Rural Development, we are tying up with a few SDG village already in Bangladesh, in Kustia and Pabna. We are making, and the same model we are going to replicate to the Africa also. In few villages already we have identified, and we are making the thing how we can replicate that thing. So most of the model village, when we are the proper documentation of the model village. In this regard, I can appreciate the effort of Dr. Hiralal and his team. They are making proper documentation. This is very important. The journey, how the village has come, when they have started. So you can talk at the baseline survey through participatory method, through PRA method, baseline survey. But the process of the development of the village, how it become model, in whether it's a one activities, whether it's a holistic, that can be another issue. What our Professor Prasad has raised the issue already. That is different. But the process, how it went, that process documentation is properly, you have to make it. Until and unless it can be, it is very difficult to replicate the same thing. Otherwise, we can develop 4-5 village, model village, okay. But after then what? The scaling up of this is very important. So whether you have taken target, whether is it possible to make entire all the villages of UP to come as a model village, or we are just making 1 or 2 a model village, and we are giving all the energy, all the fund, all the efforts for 2, 3, 4, 5 villages. But what about next? Whether we are going to take that bridge? If it is those, how many years it will take? So how many agencies, whether it is possible with you only to make this thing? So ownership again, it will come. And that's why it's a very, very relevant, very, very important also to make a team, to make a convergence, more tie-up, coming out a common framework, which may be based on the customized, based on the depend on the village resources, availability of the local power, local problem, local knowledge. So localization of those issues. Now even we are working so much on the localization of SDGs, and that's why is here coming that when we are talking of the sustainable development village, then localization of sustainable development village is mostly important, because we can't impose from our side this is the model. No, rather let them think what can be the model fit for them. So this is the some thought. And definitely when we are coming as that withdrawal, again I am coming to the withdrawal. When we started with the sustainability and we are talking about the withdrawal, how long will be with them, to the villagers? How long will give them support in terms of capacity building, in terms of technical, in anything you are doing? But when is the proper time of withdrawing ourselves so that they can sustain on their own foot, they can continue the journeys? Several even in the German project, I have seen the 70 villages. I was working as the international monitor for that, and we found that the village, the eco development village sir was discussing, there is other villages, the concept, but when the project gone, everything gone. So that the withdrawal mechanism and making them sustainability is very, very important. And I'm sure that this kinds of dialogue is important to find out more concrete tools, more convergence of approach, and sharing the thoughts, and to replicate from, maybe you are doing in UP, maybe we can do in other part. Maybe that's why we jointly work trying together, and we are also trying to replicate few of the concept of this model village. We started in Bangladesh in collaboration. Now we are going for the Africa and other Latin Americas also. But I am hopefully looking for collaboration with both the organization, and to make and offer better village. With this, let me stop, and if there is question, we can also all together there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. And again, some very thought-provoking questions you have asked, answers to which will not only help us kind of solidify our resolve to work towards rural development, but it will also clear a lot of ambiguity in terms of the approach that we have taken, the SOPs that we have created. And before I move to the audience, I will just put out some important pointers, which is based on our learnings that we've had so far through the kind of methodology we have adopted. So our approach towards work is more intention driven versus not being intervention driven. So when I say that, what I mean is that we have been able to study a lot of rural development projects that have been implemented earlier. And we totally agree that, while it for some time seemingly the project was able to achieve 100% of its goal, but eventually after a couple of years, the story went back to square one, and similar amount of efforts and resources had to be deployed to come back to that achievable level. And the sole reason that we were able to analyze and understand was the fact that there was no sense of ownership from the community, and they were just taking it as an external intervention. It lasted its life, and then it died down a natural death. Which is why we are very particular that whatever we are doing, it is going to be intention driven and not intervention driven. So we are first and foremost working on changing the mindset of the people, which obviously is a very Herculean task. Influencing behavior change is very difficult to do. But what we are trying to do is that through every capacity building activity, through every awareness initiative, through our village manifesto meetings, we are first trying to create a demand for development. And therefore, after that, whatever happens, people are likely to be more receptive in kind of accepting whatever is being given to them as something of their own benefit and their own welfare. So I totally agree that till the time we are able to achieve that mind space, any activity, any intervention in whatever time frame will not be really impactful and sustainable in its real sense, versus ideally how it should be. So completely point taken. Even for us, whatever activities we are implementing, it is being very, very scientifically approached. So there are no biases, no assumptions that we keep in mind before implementing any activity. As a process, we first build a rapport. So even before the baseline that we conduct, there is an entire rapport building exercise that we do with the pradhans and the locals, for people to be able to be trusting us enough to kind of accepting us in their community, and allowing us to help them get better. And after that, we get into baseline, which is well documented. Again, like you rightly said, what is a model? So a model is not something, so we are not going as experts and saying that we have the perfect formula and if you implemented, your village will transform overnight. In fact, what we are doing is we are making the villagers co-designers of that model. So we are not going with a very rigid framework. We go there with an open mind. We go there with a very, very rough sketch of what can be done, what should be done. But then eventually, so for example, after the baseline, we conduct a detailed ward level survey where we ask people only 2 questions. So we bring the community together and we ask them, what are your main problems in the ward itself? And once all of them collectively list down their problems, we then brainstorm with the same community as to what could be their likely solutions. And this helps us identify the priority areas within each ward. And then we keep moving up, and then we identify a theme, a priority agenda at the Gram Panchayat level. And that's when we start planning about the development action plan, which is again broken down into quarterly milestones, which can be tracked and documented and evaluated, so that whatever we are doing has a reasonable time frame attached to it and reasonable goals that we look to achieve. And also, while we are doing this, our capacity building activity is an ongoing process, so that people actually understand what sustainability is and how anything given to them would be sustainable unless they become the owners of it. So like I said, we are very intention driven and not intervention driven, because we understand that anything given without first creating a demand for development will not be really fruitful and sustainable in the long run. So, it's a really lively conversation that we've had so far. Some great questions, some great thoughts being put out by our eminent speakers. And now I would also request anybody in the audience to please pose any questions that you may have, so that we can address them. Any discussions, Dr. Hiralal, if you have any point that you would want to summarize or bring in.
Saurabh, please look into the chat box. There is some questions, and please try to answer.
Yes, sir.
With the help of Munishji, I have seen that someone has asked some points.
Right, sir. Anybody in the audience, while I go through the questions in the chat room, if anybody has any question for any of our speakers, you can please let us know. किसी का कोई हमारे speakers के लिए सवाल हो, तो आप अपना सवाल हमारे सामने रख सकते हैं. हेलेन सेकार जी ने सवाल पूछा है कि काइंडली एक्सप्लेन हाउ दिस मॉडल विलेज प्रोग्राम could contribute to labor development and their empowerment through the PRIs. Helen Sekar ji, thank you so much for this question. Very valid question. And like we mentioned that through our Model program, we do all sorts of development activities through convergence of the available resources and funds at the PRI level. And when this convergence is being designed, we try and ensure that whatever activities are planned, these are activities which are done by the locally available labor, which is the villagers themselves. And a lot of times, a lot of these activities would require skill development, capacity building. So while the end result is to achieve any kind of physical construction or repair or development, eventually it leads to the cycle of first building capacity for the local villagers to be able to do that, then identifying the scope for convergence so that people can be paid for what their time and effort. And also, once the skill is being imparted to them, that skill stays with them for life and could be a revenue generating option for them. So on your question of labor development, there is ample opportunity that we're already seeing taking place at the village level, and is definitely happening through the convergence that we try and bring about. Right. There is a point of appreciation for Dr. Jayant Chaudhary, where Helen Sekarji has written very good presentation on the importance of ownership by the villagers for sustainability and the need for geographical spread rather than focusing on few villages specific models. Valid point. Just to give a perspective of how we at Model Gaon are approaching it. So we intend to take this forward and scale it up on a hub and spoke model, where in different parts in different districts, if we are able to develop one model village, then that becomes the inspiration or the SOP for villages and panchayats nearby to follow, because they would also be surviving in a similar landscape under similar challenges. And therefore it will become a ready reckoner for them to emulate and start doing development activities in their own villages. So that is how we are taking it. Anis Bhai has written village. ये अनीस भाई फतेहपुर से हैं, और वो कहना चाह रहे हैं कि वो अपने गांव में भी अपने गांव को विकसित करने के लिए काम कर रहे हैं, और वो जानना चाह रहे हैं कि वो हमसे कैसे जुड़ सकते हैं। तो अनीस भाई जी, आप अपना नंबर यहाँ पे लिख दें, और हमारी टीम से हमारे जो साथी हैं वो आपसे संपर्क करेंगे, और हम लोग कैसे साथ में काम कर सकते हैं, आपके गांव को कैसे और विकसित बना सकते हैं आपकी मदद से, इस पे हम आपसे चर्चा करेंगे। और किसी का कोई सवाल हो तो प्लीज आप या तो चैट में लिखें या फिर आप डायरेक्टली पूछ सकते हैं। Any of our speakers would want to cross comment or kind of bring out and highlight any insight from what you have heard from other speakers, you are please most welcome to do it.
सौरभ जी, मुझे एक दो पॉइंट ऐड करनी थी।
प्लीज सर, प्लीज प्लीज।
एक तो हमें ये बताना था कि हम हर एक विलेज का जो हम अडॉप्ट करते हैं उसको विलेज डेवलपमेंट प्लान बनाने की कोशिश करते हैं, पहले सर्वे करते हैं, बेंचमार्क सर्वे करके प्लान बनाते हैं। मुझे लगता है ये एक्सरसाइज ये एक्सरसाइज रिपीटेटिव हो सकता है, इसलिए जब से हमारे पास जीपीडीपी शुरू हुआ है, ग्राम पंचायत डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम, हर एक ग्राम पंचायत के जितने विलेज है उसके प्लान, उसके विलेज की प्लान बनाई जा चुकी है, और उससे 14th फिनांस कमीशन दूसरा ग्रांट से मिल रहा है। तो मुझे लगता है ये बहुत जरूरी होगा कि हम अपने विलेज प्लान को उस जीपीडीपी के विलेज प्लान से इंटीग्रेट करें, जिसमें कि हमारा कन्वर्जन बहुत आसान हो जाए, और ऐसे ही कुछ पॉइंट जो हमारे नीड उस प्लान से मैच नहीं करते उसके लिए हम अलग से मेहनत करें, तो इजी होगा रास्ता। दूसरा मुझे ये कहना है कि आपने बताया कि आपका पहला इंटरवेंशन नहीं इंटेंशन रहता है, और वो इंटेंशन होता है माइंडसेट का। ये एक बहुत ही ब्रॉड मुद्दा है कि आप किस माइंडसेट को चेंज करने जा रहे हैं, और उस वो माइंडसेट चेंज करने की जरूरत क्या है। आपको ये देखना है कि पिछले 50, 60, 70 साल की जो माइंडसेट है उसको आप कैसे चेंज करोगे। आज तक जो लोग डिप्राइव्ड रहे हैं उनको ओवरनाइट हम माइंडसेट चेंज करके तुरंत उनको ट्रांसफॉर्म नहीं कर सकते हैं। इसलिए मेरा सुझाव ये होगा कि आप पहले उनके लिए एंट्री पॉइंट एक्टिविटी कीजिए, जिससे आपका उनको रैपो बने, जो उनकी जरूरत है उसको इमीडिएट कम से कम एक पॉइंट को एड्रेस कीजिए, जो आज तक हम करते आए हैं। जब भी गांव में हम जाते हैं तो पहले एक एंट्री पॉइंट एक्टिविटी करते हैं, जो उनका मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेंट शॉर्ट एक्टिविटी है, जो जिसके लिए वो परेशान है, जो गांव की सामूहिक जरूरत है। तो ऐसा एक कोई एक्टिविटी चुन के जिसमें कि सबकी सहमति है, उसमें आप एंट्री पॉइंट एक्टिविटी स्टार्ट करना चाहिए। और एज वी गो अलोंग उनको ये बताना है, माइंडसेट केवल एक ही चीज करना है कि वी कैन डू टुगेदर, इतनी बात बताना है, हम साथ में मिलकर कर सकते हैं। और माइंडसेट करने की कुछ जरूरत नहीं है, क्योंकि मुझे लगता है कि वो हमने से ज्यादा ही कुछ स्ट्रॉन्ग है, वो इतने स्ट्रॉन्ग सिचुएशन को देख चुके हैं कि उनकी माइंडसेट बहुत स्ट्रांग है, सिचुएशन को झेले हैं, तो उनको अगर ये बता के आगे बढ़ा जाए कि वी आर टुगेदर, आप जो कर रहे हैं सही है, मैं आपके साथ आऊंगा इसमें और आपको आगे बढ़ाऊंगा। और जो आपका दूसरा स्टेप जो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है वो है, आप बता रहे हैं कि आप कम्युनिटी मोबिलाइजेशन करते हैं। ये एक ऐसा सब्जेक्ट है, आई एम सॉरी आई एम बीइंग मोर इन हिंदी बिकॉज देयर आर अदर पीपल आल्सो। कम्युनिटी मोबिलाइजेशन वन सब्जेक्ट which has been very dear to me. I have written a book also on this subject, community mobilization methods and models, wherein you have to again be very clear that you are going to mobilize the community on what basis, on what. Community mobilization is not done in vacuum. You have to be very sure that around which activity you are going to mobilize the community. So until that activity is very clear that this is what we are going to take up and how we are going to seek the support of the community, so that one thing is sorted out, then you can only mobilize the community around that common felt needs. So these are certain core things of the community mobilization which need to be very, very clear in the minds of the community as well as the community workers like you and me, and then only we can go to. Otherwise, my experience is that community mobilization also becomes an endless struggle, whereas it has to come to an end. Because in the last I would just say that please consider your model village program as a project. If you take it and on a project mode, then the very concept of project is that project is a time-bound activity. And if you are not considering your model village program as a project, it will continue to be an ongoing process. And when you are going something on an ongoing process, the people will also behave like an ongoing, and nothing concrete would be seen as an outcome. That is my. So let us accept the realities of life, realities of the time, because in the digital age, people have also become very knowledgeable. And they do realize, do understand, and do know everything, not through you, but through others also. So to develop that transparency, it is also very important. And taking them along with the route is important through common views, common ideas, and common efforts like that. Otherwise, I have all my best wishes with you, and I'm always available for any time, any type of intervention, help. I'll be most happy to come along with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I am in fact very curious to lay my hands on your book. And like you rightly said, community mobilization can become a loop in itself unless it is deployed with a proper framework. So I'm sure your literature would be really handy for us to improve our interventions in terms of community mobilization that we're planning. So I'll connect with you separately, sir. And I'll request access to the book and your ideas on that.
You can find the book in the Google, in my name.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. I'll just take details from you, and then I'll order my copy, sir. I'll do that.
Sure.
And absolutely, sir. Like you said initially, even before we start community mobilization, there is an entire period of rapport building that we do with the villagers at the local level, where we start by educating them about the various government schemes, what benefits that they can that we can kind of facilitate for them. So like you rightly said, absolutely any of our activity will only be acceptable only if we are able to first create a rapport, make them understand that we will add some value to their time and effort, and take things forward from there on. So absolutely, thank you so much, sir. We have already crossed our time, but the discussion demanded this kind of intense deliberation. I would request Dr. Hiralal to please kind of summarize this session for us and thank all our esteemed.
देखिए, मैं बातें आप सभी लोगों का सुन रहा था। गांव का विकास जो है, ये जो हम लोगों का मॉडल है, ये मॉडल की कहीं थियरी नहीं है क्या? हमने इसकी थियरी पहले इसका प्रैक्टिकल किया है वादा में। जैसे हमने 1 मीटर 34 सेंटीमीटर पानी बढ़ाया, क्रॉप प्रोडक्टिविटी 18.5% बढ़ाया, और मल न्यूट्रिशन को घटाया। यूपी के 2019 के लोकसभा में 10.5% वोटिंग बढ़ाया टू इम्प्रूव द डेमोक्रेटिक थिंग्स। उसका रिकॉर्ड नहीं तोड़ पाया, ये कुछ नहीं, हम लोग कोई थियरी वरी लेके नहीं गए, बिल्कुल देहाती देसी तरीके से जो प्रयोग किया उसी को एक पन्ने में, हर प्रयोग को एक पन्ने में डॉक्यूमेंट कर लिया। हमने यहीं से शुरुआत की थी कि हमारा ये प्रयोग बॉटम अप है। तो ये बातें, अभी मैं आप लोगों की बातें जो सुन रहा था, हम लोग बड़ा बड़ा प्रोजेक्ट लिखते हैं, बड़ा लंबा चौड़ा कॉम्प्लेक्स कॉम्प्लिकेटेड, ना लिखने वाले के समझ में आए और ना करने वाले के समझ में आए। तो हम लोग इसको यही कर रहे हैं कि कैसे लोगों के दिल और दिमाग में घुसा जाए, कैसे उनका कंट्रोल हमारे हाथ में आए। ये तभी संभव है जब हम उसको उसका फायदा दिखाएंगे। तो हम लोग उसका फायदा दिखाते हैं। हमसे जुड़ोगे तो आपके पानी की समस्या खत्म कर देंगे, आपसे जुड़ोगे तो आपके ऑक्सीजन की समस्या खत्म कर देंगे, हरियाली करा देंगे। तो ये मॉडल बड़ा देसी और देहाती टाइप का है, और ये चीज बेस्ड ऑन द मोबिलाइजेशन। मतलब हम कुछ नहीं करेंगे, ये जो करंट सिनेरियो है डिमांड सप्लाई का, समस्या जनता की और समाधान सरकार कर दे या कोई दूसरा कर दे, जनता गांव वाला नहीं करेगा। इसी माइंडसेट को तोड़ना है, और जब तक ये नहीं टूटेगा, जब तक जनता काम अपना खुद नहीं करेगी, जनता लीडरशिप रोल में होगी और हम उसके पीछे, जनता आगे आगे और मॉडल गांव उसके पीछे पीछे। बांदा में हमने यही किया, जनता आगे आगे, कलेक्टर साहब पीछे पीछे। कभी रुकते थे तो हल्का सा धक्का देता था, तभी रिजल्ट मिला। 1 मीटर 34 सेंटीमीटर पानी एक सीजन में हम लोगों ने बढ़ा दिया, वो हमने नहीं बढ़ाया, जनता ने बढ़ाया। तो देखिए, ये महात्मा गांधी का सपना, रिपब्लिक विलेज का पूरा सपना, डॉक्टर APJ कलाम का बहुत बड़ा सपना है। आज तक वो सपना हम पूरा नहीं कर पाए, उसी को हम लोग धरती पे उतारने का प्रयास कर रहे हैं। ये हिम्मत कैसे आई, जो कोई नहीं कर पाया उसको हम लोग करने का इतना बड़ा बीड़ा क्यों उठाया? वो जो बांदा का जो रिजल्ट मिला उसने हमारी हिम्मत बढ़ाई कि हाँ ये हो सकता है, करो। तो वहां से हमने उठाया, इसको सिस्टमेटिक एक तरीका दिया, ऑनलाइन हम कनेक्ट करते हैं, हम लोग उनके गांव में जाते हैं, और हम लोगों का एक SOP है कि गांव विजिट करेंगे तो 17-18 ग्रुप में जाकर के उनसे बात करते हैं, और ग्रुप का एक पर्टिकुलर उनको मोटिवेट करते हैं। तो इस तरह से एक मॉडल से फ्रेंडली हम लोग लैब करते रहते हैं, इंप्रूव करते रहते हैं। और अभी तक जो रिजल्ट 1 साल चलाते हुए, इसको जनवरी में शुरू किया था, उसके बाद कोरोना से हम सभी लोग परेशानी में रहे, लेकिन 1 साल में जो इसकी विजिबिलिटी बनी, जो आज तक किसी ने ये नहीं कहा कि आइडिया, सभी लोग बहुत अप्रिशिएट करते हैं एक बार, और लोग किसी ने नहीं कहा ये नहीं हो सकता है। हो सकता है, पता नहीं क्यों लगता है, क्योंकि हमारा आइडिया है सिंपल कि कोई अनपढ़ भी समझ ले, पार्ट 1 पार्ट 2 पार्ट 3, ये वो गांव देहाती देसी। तो आप लोगों से आज जुड़ के मुझे, हम लोगों को बहुत सीखने का मौका मिला। अदरवाइज हम लोगों के जो बड़े बड़े विभाग हैं, जिसमें बड़े बड़े विद्वान हैं, मैं इसको इस तरह के तरीके से देखता हूँ। कक्षा 8 फेल यही बाराबंकी लखनऊ के नजदीक में राम शरण वर्मा कक्षा 8 फेल है। उनको बनाना मैन के नाम से जाना जाता है। उनके यहाँ एग्री बिजनेस के PhD वाले, कोई ऐसा अवार्ड नहीं है जो उनको ना मिला हो। तो हम लोग, हमारा ये जो फोकस है, पढ़ाई से ज्यादा कढ़ाई पे, कढ़ा PhD पे हम फोकस कर रहे हैं। पढ़ा PhD और कढ़ा PhD दोनों मिल जाए तब तो सोने में सुहागा। लेकिन हम पढ़े PhD से ज्यादा हमारा फोकस कढ़ा PhD है, जिसने जमीन पे करके कुछ दिखाया है। वही बात, मैं भी कढ़ा PhD हूँ। मैं कोई मॉडल गांव या कोई एग्री बिजनेस या मेरा बैकग्राउंड इंजीनियरिंग है, मैं इलेक्ट्रिकल इंजीनियर हूँ बाई एजुकेशन। इस नौकरी में आने के बाद मैं NTPC में इंजीनियर रहा, मेरा भी कोई एजुकेशनल बैकग्राउंड नहीं है, लेकिन हाँ मैं कढ़ा PhD हूँ, मैंने उसको जमीन पे किया। तो ये मेरी फिलॉसफी है। मैं अपनी जो फिलॉसफी को बताने की कोशिश किया, अभी मेरे दिमाग में ये आइडिया कैसे आया ये बताने की कोशिश किया। और अगर आप लोग हम लोगों से जुड़ेंगे और तो ये विन विन सिचुएशन है, आपका भी फायदा होगा, हमारा भी फायदा होगा। और हम पूरे देश में सभी लोगों से जुड़ना चाहते हैं। गुलाम हमारा देश जब इस्लामी के लड़ाई लड़ रहे थे तो पहले सब आदमी को जगाना पड़ा। इसी तरह से आज भी हमारा गांव गरीबी, बेरोजगारी, भुखमरी का गुलाम है। उससे लड़ने के लिए हम सारी सबकी जरूरत है। तो अभी हम लोग वो लड़ाई लड़ रहे हैं। और मॉडल गांव बनाने के लिए जो हमने प्रैक्टिकली देखा है, जो मॉडल गांव बने हैं, बहुत सारे मॉडल गांव देश में हैं, उसमें 20 से 25 साल लग गया है। हमारा ये मानना है कि हम लोगों को भी कम से कम एक गांव को मॉडल गांव कन्वर्ट करने में कम से कम 10 साल लगेगा। वो 25 में कर रहे हैं, 20 में कर रहे हैं, अगर हम सिस्टमेटिक तरीके से करेंगे और विदाउट कोई एक्स्ट्रा सोर्स रिसोर्स, हमें ये नहीं कि गांव में पैसा ठोक दो, डिमांड सप्लाई नहीं करना है, हमें उसी गांव के लोगों के पावर को पूल करना है और उस पावर से गांव को एम्पावर करना है, उसे ड्राइव करना है। ये फिलॉसफी है। थैंक यू सौरभ। और आप लोगों के साथ मुझे बड़ा अच्छा लगा, चटर्जी सर और आर प्रसाद साहब, आप लोग बहुत विद्वान हैं। हम आपके सामने इस फील्ड में 0 बटे सन्नाटा है क्या, लेकिन आप लोगों से जब हम जुड़ते हैं और आप लोगों की बातें सुनते हैं तो हमारे अंदर भी ऊर्जा आती है। और ये जयंता चौधरी साहब से कई बार बात हुई, अब जयंता चौधरी से हमारी रिश्तेदारी हो गई है, आप लोग आज से हमारे रिश्तेदार हो गए हैं। अभी तक हम अलग अलग थे, अब कहते हैं वो नाट टाई क्या बोलते हैं अंग्रेजी में, कि वो शादी मैरिज हो गया हमारा आपका। अब हम दोनों लोग मिलके गांधी जी के सपने को, डॉक्टर कलाम के पूरा के सपने को धरती पे साकार करेंगे। इस दुनिया में नथिंग इज इम्पॉसिबल, क्या नथिंग इज इम्पॉसिबल। थैंक यू सौरभ प्लीज कंटिन्यू।
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, everybody. We will connect with all of you individually as well and keep seeking your guidance going forward on this project. There is a lot that we can learn from you and your experiences, and we'll continue to bother you for that. But thank you so much for giving out so much of time and valuable insights today. And we look forward to meeting you all soon again. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.